Hello everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Recent Things. Today we're going to be doing another one of my favorite videos to do when we hit those Dollar Tree wreath frames. I do 3 of them. I just love doing these videos almost as much as I love doing those week of wreaths. Today we're going to feature the Dollar Tree candy cane wreath frame. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to create this beautiful candy cane wreath. Why don't I just get started and I'll show you what I made. The star of the show today is the candy cane wire wreath frame. I'm going to also be using 2.5-inch burlap wired ribbon along with this pack of 100 Christmas bulbs that I found at Michael's and my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue down the wire ribbon just right at the bottom end of the candy cane, and then I am just going to wrap it around the entire frame. I'm not being too careful with it, I'm not being too precise, it's all going to be hidden, but I am just wrapping it all the way around. I'm using 2 full rolls for this, and when I get right to the end, I cut off the excess, and then I just glue it right down into place. And once that's all nice and dry, we have our base ready for our Christmas ornament candy cane wreath. Look at this, so far, so good. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking off those little hooks right at the very end. This is optional, you don't have to do that. I found taking them off with a pair of pliers so much easier rather than using my hands. I ended up having 2 different sizes, so I sorted those out as well. And now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start right at the bottom of that candy cane wreath, and I'm just going to start gluing on those Christmas ornaments. I'm starting off with the smaller ones just right at the bottom at first. I'm almost gluing them together. So I'm gluing them at the bottom onto that ribbon, and I'm gluing them on the sides as well. I'm using a lot of the larger ones on the outside along with some small ones, but predominantly the larger ones I'm using on the outside. And of course, I outlined it first with my ornaments, then I'm going to come on the inside and fill with my ornaments as well. So that's what I'm just doing right now, is I'm just kind of taking various Christmas bulbs, placing them down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add those finishing touches on there just to cover up the open areas, just filling it in with those beautiful Christmas bulbs. And I loved working with these bulbs. They were great. These are plastic, so they're not going to break. And of course, our final result is this beautiful glittery green, silver, red, beautiful wreath. Now to hang this, I'm actually going to take a pipe cleaner. I'm just going to figure out what size I want, twist it around a couple of times, cut off the excess, and then all I'm going to do is add some glue right at the back side of our wreath frame, add that little hoop that we just created, put some more glue down, and then I just cut a little piece of excess ribbon, add some glue just right around the edges just to cover up all that hot glue, so it just kind of finishes off a little bit. And this is how we can hang our wreath. Here is the final result of this glittery green, gold, silver, and red Christmas ornament wreath. Here it is hanging on my door in all of its glory. A nice, simple, easy wreath to do for our DIY number 1. Again, we are using the candy cane wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. This is just some yarn. It's chunky yarn I purchased from Michael's in white. I have some 1.5 and 2.5-inch wired ribbon laying around. This comes from my stash, along with this red and white twine rope that I'm going to be using, this cute little plush elf that I found at the Dollar Tree, some Christmas ornaments that I had left over, pipe cleaners, and of course, I'm going to be using my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. And to start off, I'm going to wrap my yarn, and what I'm going to do in the beginning is just hot glue it right to the edge of that curve at the end of the candy cane wreath frame. The reason why I'm doing this is I want to hide the black frame a little bit. So I'm using my hot glue gun just to kind of get that into position. Once that's in position, then I'm just going to start wrapping to my heart's content. And this does go rather quickly once you get into the rhythm of it. Once I finish a section, I come to the crossbar, I do add some hot glue, and then I put the yarn right on that hot glue just to make sure everything stays in place. And then, guess what? Wrap, 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 wrap to my heart's content, and I'm going to be gluing it down at every single cross intersection. Once that's all done, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the very end that we did right at the very beginning with my hot glue gun, and just attaching it all on there. Once I'm done, I'm going to throw more hot glue on the back side, push it down with my little spatula there, cut off the excess, and add a little bit of hot glue right to the end so it doesn't fray too much. This yarn, I have to say, is so soft. I just loved it. I couldn't stop rubbing it. It was so soft. And just for a little color on there, I'm going to take the red and white twine, and I'm just going to wrap it around every so often, maybe every half an inch, and just wrap it around the entire candy cane wreath frame. And once I get right to the end, I'm going to cut the excess off, add a little bit of hot glue down, and then I'm just going to press it down using my little tool, and our base wreath is all ready to go. I'm going to be making a large bow. For this, I'm going to use a ruler, some 2.5 inch and 1.5 inch ribbon. And of course, I'm also going to be using a pipe cleaner, which is full length, and some cut pipe cleaners just cut right in half. So for my first section, I'm going to mark off the 14-inch mark, gather it together, and then I'm going to measure out that 14 inches again. So my first 14 inches is my tail, and this is going to be my loop. So you can see there I have my loop there, and then I'm going to measure out another 14 inches, gather that all together. That's going to create our second loop, and again we're going to measure out another 14 inches and gather that together, creating our third loop, and our final one is the tail. So now I'm just going to cut that, and to keep that all together, I'm just going to use one of those half pipe cleaners that I cut right in half, and then I'm just going to twist it right around the center, and to finish off that ribbon, we're just going to dovetail both of the ends of those dovetails, folding it in half, cutting on an angle, and that creates a little finishing touch, and our first segment is all done for our bow. For our second segment, this time I'm going to measure out 12 inches for the tail, and I'm also going to measure out 12 inches for my loops. Now, if you have a good side and a bad side, so that's a finished side or an unfinished side to your ribbon, like I'm showing you here, you want to twist right at that center point where you're gathering it, such that the good side is always facing up. So here I am doing my fifth and final loop at the 12-inch mark, and then I'm going to cut at 12 inches. That's going to be my tail, and put it together with a pipe cleaner. And finishing touches, as always, we're going to cut on an angle with some dovetails just to create a little finishing touch, and segment number 2 is done. Moving on to the third one, I'm going to keep the 12-inch tail, but this time I'm going to do 10-inch loops. So again, I'm twisting right at the center as I gather it to make sure that that good side or finished side stays up, so it's facing up. And for this one, the same as the previous segment, I'm going to be doing 5 loops and 2 tails. And here we are, just finishing it off with a cut at the 12-inch mark, adding that pipe cleaner on there, twisting it together, making sure it's nice and secured. And then, of course, our finishing touches, which is those beautiful dovetails. I'm addicted to dovetails. I love them. I got to learn how to finish off my ribbons a little bit more. I have a little more variety. So the final segment, I'm doing 12-inch tail and 8-inch loops. So I'm going to be doing the 8-inch mark, bringing it together. And for this one, I'm only doing the 3 loops for this segment, and then I'm going to cut the tail at the 12 inches. And then of course I'm going to grab that pipe cleaner, twist it right in the center, and guess what? You know what's coming. We're going to dovetail. I dovetailed so many ribbons today. Our final piece I'm going to measure at 5 inches, and then I'm just going to add a little hot glue on one end, and then I'm going to fold it over into itself, creating just like a little tube using that 5-inch piece. Now all our segments are done. I have them here laid out, and to put it all together, all I'm going to do is attach them using those pipe cleaner stems. So we're just going to wrap it around, cut off the excess, and I'm going to do that for each segment. So I've laid out on my table all of my segments according to size, largest to smallest, so I can just grab the next one, attach it on there using the same method, wrapping that pipe cleaner around, twisting it in the back a couple of times, and then you can cut off the excess of these ones. Once all my segments are down, I'm going to use that little tube that we created along with a full-size pipe cleaner, position that little tube in the middle, then I'm going to feed those pipe cleaners just around the back, and then I'm going to twist them together. Now don't cut these stems. This is how we're going to attach our bow to our wreath. Of course, I'm going to fluff up just a little bit, and here we go is our big, beautiful bow ready for our wreath. First thing I'm going to do before I attach my bow is create a little hanger, and this is a full-size pipe cleaner that I'm just feeding through, and then I'm just going to twist that around a couple of times, cut off the excess, and then we have our little hanger all ready for our wreath so we can hang our wreath. And yes, it is upside down. It's done that way on purpose. You'll see where I'm going with this. To attach our bow, we do the exact same thing. So we feed those 2 pipe cleaner stems right through where we just created the hanger. I'm going to make sure it's positioned the way I want it, and then I'm just going to twist a couple of times, cut off the excess. This is optional. I always like to add a little bit of hot glue on my pipe cleaners just to make sure they're nice and secure. We're going to let that dry for a bit, and then of course we're going to add our finishing touches. I'm going to just position our little plush friend here, and then I'm going to take some red pipe cleaners along with those Christmas bulbs, and then I'm just going to feed one pipe cleaner through the end of the hook, twist it around a couple of times, and I'm going to do that for all 3 of those Christmas bulbs. Then I'm just going to glue them at the very tail end of that candy cane wreath frame. All 3 of them I'm going to glue down, and I'm just going to make sure that those pipe cleaners are gathered together right where the hand is. I'm going to glue that hand down, then glue those pipe cleaners right in place as well. And now it's time to glue our little friend on there so they don't go anywhere. We don't want them falling off. Then we're going to cut off those excess pipe cleaners, and our little friend is holding some Christmas balloons. Here is our final wreath, or I should say our final touches all completed. Here is the final result with that huge, beautiful red and white bow. I just love it. Our little friend hanging out, holding on to some Christmas balloons, just finishing off this beautiful wreath. And I have to say, this wreath makes me smile. Every once in a while, there is a wreath that I do, and I just have a huge smile on my face. This is definitely one of those wreaths. Our final one here is our candy cane wreath frame. I'm using 21-inch Deco mesh and 2.5-inch wired ribbon, a couple of different patterns, some white pipe cleaners. I have some greenery here and some red berries from the Dollar Tree, and of course my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I'm going to start off with my Deco mesh, and I'm just going to gather it right at the end there. So all I'm doing is I'm just walking my fingers up, creating a little gather point. Once that's all gathered in, I'm using a half pipe cleaner and just twisting around at that point. I'm not going to cut the pipe cleaner, I'm just going to leave it be, but I am going to cut the excess of that Deco mesh off. And then to create our little bundles, I'm going to start at the 5-inch mark and go to the 15-inch mark, so that's 10 inches. So we're doing the bubble method today, and I'm going to be measuring out at 10 inches. So when we get that 10 inches, I'm going to add that pipe cleaner on there. You can see I'm just showing you how the bubble is going to be formed once it hits our wreath. And then I move on to my next section. So I'm not cutting anything at this point. I'm measuring out 10 inches, attaching my pipe cleaner, twisting it around a couple of times, and I'm making sure those stems face up. So there is a reason for this. It's the way we attach it to the wreath frame. So I want to make sure that all of my stems are facing the same way. This is an 18-foot roll that I'm using here. And again, it is 21-inch Deco mesh, and I'm doing it at 10 inches. Once I finish the entire roll, I come to the very end and cut off that excess the exact same way we did right at the front, just getting rid of that excess. When you're done, you should have something that looks like this. It looks like a big chain link, and now we are ready to attach it to our wreath frame. For the beginning, I am going to attach, and I'm going to make sure that those pipe cleaner stems face down. Now for the very beginning one, I'm going to fold it underneath itself and bring those pipe cleaner stems to the other side. Then I'm going to attach it just to one of the very end inside wires, twist it around a couple of times, and then I'm going to twist it around the very end wire just to make sure it's nice and anchored. It's not going to go anywhere. Now at this point, the wireframe is facing down. Now it's facing up, and we're going to start our first little bubble. So again, we're going to make sure that those stems are facing down. I'm going to be using the 2 inside wire for this attachment. So I'm feeding those pipe cleaners through the 2 outside openings, making sure those 2 inside wires are inside of the pipe cleaner. Then I'm just going to twist it around, making sure it's nice and tight, nice and secure, and that's our first bubble created. Then we're going to come in and we're going to add our second attachment. We're going to do the exact same method. So it's the 2 inside wires, wrap that pipe cleaner around those 2 inside wires, and then just twist it a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure and that it's not going to go anywhere. And I'm just going to move it up, just making sure it looks good. I'm going to fluff up the first couple of my bubbles just to make sure it is how I want it to look. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to continue on with the same method, attaching it to those 2 inside wires. I'm moving on to the next section, and for this wreath, I am using 3 bundles per section. So that's going to be 3 pipe cleaners per section. It's going to give you 3 bundles or 3 bubbles per section as well. And I'm just going to continue on attaching those on there. And once I get to the very end, I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did in the beginning. I'm just going to flip that end piece right underneath to hide our cuts right at the very end, attach it, twist it around a couple of times, and then that's going to hide our little beginning and end. This portion is totally optional. I like to add a little hot glue on each side of that pipe cleaner just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Like I said, it's totally optional. You don't have to do this. This is just a finishing touch that I like to do. And once that's all dry, now we can start fluffing up those beautiful bubbles. I am loving this Deco mesh. It's got some burlap in there with the cream color Deco mesh, and now our base is all ready to decorate. Of course, we're going to do another bow. This time we're going to do a really simple bow, the bundle bow, and I'm going to make my cuts at the 24-inch mark. So I'm just going to measure out that 24 inches, grab my scissors, and cut my ribbon at that 24-inch mark. So the ribbon cut lengths for this, I'm using 2 different styles of ribbon. I'm going to have 3 pieces cut at 24 inches for ribbon number 1. For ribbon number 2, I'm going to be doing 2 pieces cut at the 24-inch mark as well. And this is going to create our little bundle bow. We're going to dovetail once more, but I'm only dovetailing one end of our ribbon. The other one we're just going to leave as is. I'm just going to dovetail all of those pieces. To create our little bow, the left-hand side is the straight edge, the right-hand side is our dovetail, and then I'm going to place my finger right at that 9-inch mark, hold it there, bring the straight side over to 16 inches, And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over an inch at the 15-inch mark, and then I'm just going to gather that there. And what that does is that creates a tail at one end and a loop at the other, as you can see here. And then I'm just going to use my 2 fingers to hold that in place. Now I'm going to take my other ribbon. I'm going to make sure the good side is facing down. Again, straight edge on the left, cut dovetail on the right, place your finger on the 9-inch mark. Bring over that straight edge to the 16-inch mark, and then we're going to gather at the 15-inch mark and place it right in between my fingers to hold it in place. And then I'm just going to continue on with all 5 pieces of my ribbon doing the exact same thing. We're just measuring it off the 9 inches, folding over to the 16 and gathering at the 15-inch mark. So this is a total of 5 pieces of ribbon cut at the 24-inch mark to create our little bundle bow. I'm going to use a full length pipe cleaner and twist it around right at the center. I'm not going to cut the pipe cleaner stem because that's how we're going to attach it to our wreath. And then I'm just going to fluff it up a little bit here. Not too much because I'm going to squish it when I attach it, but here is our beautiful little bow ready to put on our wreath. To attach it to our wreath, I'm just going to take those 2 pipe cleaner stems, and like we've done previously, I'm just going to figure out where I want it. I'm going to pick up the wreath a couple of times just to make sure the bow is where I want it. Once I figure out where that is going to go, I'm just going to feed those pipe cleaners right through to the very back, twist it a couple of times, and then we have our beautiful bow all attached. And of course, guess what? It's fluffing time. I'm going to fluff up that bow a little bit, and once I'm happy with that, I'm going to hot glue some greenery just right at the top of that bow. This just comes from the Dollar Tree. It's greenery with a little bit of silver glitter on it. Of course, with Christmas decorations, there's always glitter everywhere. And then just for some color, I'm going to add those beautiful red berries right onto that greenery. Just like I said, to add some color and pizzazz into this already neutral colored wreath. And our final result here is our beautiful neutral colored burlap and cream candy cane wreath using 21-inch Deco mesh and creating this using the bubble method. Here it is on my door, just all of its glory showing us its beauty. And of course, we're going back to DIY number 1 with all those Christmas ornaments, all that glitter, the green and the red, a simple, elegant wreath. And our second wreath that just makes me smile with our little friend there, our huge bow, and that comfy, cozy yarn that we wrapped that candy cane wreath frame in. And of course, the one we just completed, our 21-inch bubble wreath in neutral colors with a spark of red in there with those berries. Thank you so much for joining and watching me today while I created these $3 Tree candy cane wreath frames. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified whenever I upload a new project. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye for now.